Welcome to Even Tacos Fell Apart, a podcast where we do our best to own our stories, love ourselves, and thrive as we become more mentally stable, emotionally healthy, and physically well with each passing day. I'm MommaFoxFire, and today we're diving into a powerful and difficult topic that's so important to discuss. Our guest, Mike Chapman, will share his incredible story of survival, resilience, and overcoming some of life's most devastating challenges. His journey includes experiences that no one should ever have to endure, but Mike's strength and determination are truly inspiring. I always aim to create a safe and compassionate space for these stories, breaking the silence and stigma surrounding them by sharing Mike's story of surviving childhood sexual abuse and trafficking, as well as sexual assault by clergy as a young adult. I hope to foster empathy, understanding, and support for survivors, and to enlighten our listeners on these critical issues. As we explore these heavy and emotional topics, please remember that my intention is to encourage healing and raise awareness. I understand if it's too difficult to listen to. You'll hear a moment in this episode where it's almost too difficult for me as well. But by lending our ears and our hearts to these stories, we take a step toward building a more empathetic world. Before we begin, a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already so you never miss an episode. And if you find this episode valuable and this conversation valuable, please consider leaving a like or a review. Any engagement can help me reach more people. Keep listening because you're in for an episode that will leave you in awe of the incredible human spirit. All right. Welcome. Thank you so much. Welcome everyone to another Mental Health Monday. I appreciate you so much being here. I'm glad to be back from vacation. That's why we didn't have one last week, but we are back this week. We're going to be talking with Mike Chapman as our guest tonight. We're going to be talking about his survivor story from childhood to adulthood, including sexual abuse and sexual assault by clergy and also sex trafficking. So feel free to engage however you would like to engage. We do have a question queue open. If you have any questions for Mike, type in exclamation point, the letter Q, and follow it with your question into the chat. That'll put it in and make sure that I see it and we get it asked here tonight. So Mike, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate you coming on.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So a little bit about Mike. Mike is a survivor of childhood sexual abuse and sexual trafficking and a survivor of sexual assault by clergy as a young adult. In his spiritual journey to recovery, Mike has had to battle, among other things, anger, PTSD, anxiety, codependency, addictive behaviors, including porn addiction. Mike is also a full-time sign language interpreter and a part-time Santa Claus portrayal artist. He has been happily married to his wife, Beth, for over 32 years, and they have 2 adult children, Lizzie and Mac. He and Beth live in Wilson, North Carolina, and he is currently a part-time recovery life coach for both Polar Life Consulting and Husband Material. To find out more or to contact Mike, I've got some links for you. I've got a Facebook, a link tree, an email, a website. I've even got some, you know what? I did not grab those Santa links. Hold on just a second, and I'm going to stall by just talking a tiny little bit slower than I normally would, so I can grab
SantaMikeENC.com and signingsantamike.com.
Perfect. Yep, here they are. Okay. So a couple links for you as well if you're interested in checking out any of his work as Santa, which is so cool. And I love that you do the sign language also. That's really neat. So we do have...
Since we're mentioning it, I've got a little... That is me. For everyone who's on the video, I'm showing a picture of a magazine article that... from our local newspaper that had me on the cover. I'm also the centerfold, which I've never been a centerfold before. So, yes, fully clothed, but yes.
Excellent.
Good article.
Now that's a fun fact. You do the 2 truths and a lie kind of icebreaker. It's like, I've been a centerfold in a magazine.
Yep.
Oh, that is excellent. We do already have a question in the question queue. So Bite Mark is here, and she has asked, what is your favorite poem?
Yes. I saw that, and probably the ones I write, I've written 4 poems about my abuse story. In fact, I've got a friend who is a PhD, and he was writing a book on male survivors, and he saw a couple of my poems. Can I use them in my book? Sure.
Oh, that's
so he actually
cool.
published them, and I actually have that book here, and I will plug this. It's on Amazon. It's called Secret Shame, and subtitle A Survivor's Guide to Understanding Male Sexual Abuse and Male Sexual Development, written by Douglas W. Carpenter, PSYD. So it's not a PhD. He's a doctorate of psychology, I would believe. But yes, he's a friend of mine, and that just came out this past year. That wonderful resource.
Cool.
The first one I've seen focus specifically on male survivors, but it has 2 of my poems in there. So that'd be my favorite poem.
That's awesome. Well, that's really cool. I did go ahead and link that book. So if anyone is interested in checking that out, feel free to click through that. It is on Amazon. If you want to get it somewhere else, or if it's available somewhere else, get it wherever you want. That's just where it is.
Yeah. And if you need the Amazon link, shoot me an email.
Yep, absolutely. Well, that's cool. I love that you write poetry and that you're turning kind of your experience into something creative and positive, which is what we're going to talk about a little bit here later. New reading material. There you go. See, perfect. So I have to know more about you being a Santa Claus portrayal artist. So what are your favorite parts about being Santa? And is there anything that has surprised you since you started being Santa?
Well, I started back in 2019, because I'm an interpreter. I had started growing out my beard, still coloring it, and a local nonprofit serving deaf people in my area, run by the state. They were planning to do a Signing Santa event in cooperation with a local mall, and they asked me if I could do it because, I was an interpreter, I'd be fluent, and I had a beard. And I agreed. And the mall got my measurements, sent me the official mall Santa suit. And so I did that just for 2 hours on a Saturday. But then I not only did the deaf children that they brought in, but anyone who happened to be in the mall at that time could come and see Santa, and I was Santa. And I took it serious. I figured out how to get everything together, makeup, hair, everything. And the mall really appreciated that I took it very seriously. Then COVID hit, and the normal photography company that they work with, who normally hires the Santas, they couldn't agree on COVID protocols. I mean, it was all brand new. No one knew what was good, what was right, how to keep people safe, but still how to run a business and balancing those. And they couldn't agree, which makes sense. No one could agree. And so they said, well, hey, we have that Santa that was here for that deaf thing, so let's see if he wants to do it. So they hired me directly instead of through this agency. And so they stopped using the agency, hired me directly. They called, hey, do you want to be our Santa? Sure. So, I got pulled into it, and then did them all and started doing other visits and so forth. And I fell in love with it, and made this another part-time thing, and now my wife is helping me as well as a Mrs. Claus. And I think that first time in 2019, I had a special needs adult who came, probably in her 30s, probably lived in a group home, and came, and I was her Santa. And she was just continued the conversation she had with me the year before, even though it wasn't me, but it was. In her eyes, it was. So, yes, I just went with it. It's like with improv, it's yes and. You go with it. And that's what I did. And I was her Santa. And she just went on, and I was her best friend in the world, and was just telling me all about her life and what was going on. That just ate at me. So that hooked me. So that was my favorite. Lots of other stories, but I'll leave it at that. That's what got me hooked for sure.
Oh, that's really cool. So you mentioned that you were an interpreter, and you started to grow out your beard because you were an interpreter?
No, because I turned 50, and it's like, okay, I got to do something different. Got to do a change.
Yeah.
So I started growing out my beard.
Okay. All right.
And on my personal Facebook page, I have a beard progression photo as it grew out bit by bit, and then became Santa. But yeah, grew it out bit by bit, and it's now been 9 years now that I've been growing it out.
Oh, that's
it's
so
very
cool.
slow growing.
Yeah.
So it took a while.
Yeah.
But just decided, and then did Santa, and then you start bleaching it. Then as I go along, I have to bleach less and less. But yes, so yeah,
That's really cool. Has there been anything that surprised you about being Santa?
I love the power of the magic that you can get anyone to smile. And I love being that during COVID because, yeah, we had COVID protocols so far out, but I could get people to smile. Yeah. That was my goal during that time when we had to be socially distanced. The first 2 years I did it. My goal was to put a smile on everyone's face. So I would greet everyone passing by and whatever I could do to spread joy. And there's just this power that, yeah, it doesn't take much to put smiles on people's faces and to spread joy. So I use that power for good.
Absolutely. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
I don't really know if my kids still believe in Santa. So I have a 16-year-old and a 9-year-old. But I know when they did, like my 9-year-old's definitely starting to doubt. Of course, my 16-year-old doesn't. But he will, play along for the 9-year-old still because neither of us can tell if the 9-year-old really believes or not. So we both are like, of course it's real. What do you mean?
Right. Well, that's the joy about video visits, which is something I also do. That's the blue screen behind me if you're on the video portion. I can do video visits, and I prep the parents ahead of time. I'll give them a bunch of questions that they send back to me. So Santa suddenly knows all of these facts about the child.
That's awesome.
Santa knows. And yeah, so it just makes it that much more magical for them. And, there's all kinds of things we can do for a personalized video visit. So,
that's really cool.
So especially right around that age where they're not quite sure. You can do all kinds of things to share that magic. The
only thing that I've really done is I use an app to take a picture. I hope my children don't listen to this, but I use an app to take a picture every year of the tree and then put Santa into the picture. Our tree, our living room, their presents, like everything is.
You Photoshop us in there.
So it's Santa with everything the way that they see it on Christmas morning, and
I love it.
It's one of those things that I think it might be one of the few things that has him still holding on.
Wow, I love that. I have never heard of anyone doing that before. That's really special.
Yeah, I think it's called like
Photoshop.
It used to be called Catchy, but I think now it's called like Capture the Magic. Hold on, let me see.
Okay.
But it's an app, and I just use the free one. And of course, you can buy all kinds of different stuff. Oh, I don't see it on my phone anymore. Oh, I hid it. That's why I hid it, because my 9-year-old uses my phone. Now they have it called Catch Santa / Easter Bunny in My House. That's literally the name of the app now. They change the name, seems like every year, but probably search like Capture the Magic and you'll find it. But yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, anything you can do. Yeah.
Yes, keep them innocent as long as possible.
Exactly.
So what hobbies do you enjoy when you're not being Santa or a sign language interpreter or a recovery life coach?
Well, I do Comic-Cons, and I do a Santa mashup where I am, it's Obi Claus Kenobi.
I saw that on your website.
So, yes, and actually, okay. You're asking, so I've got my prop here. I've got to open it up. And yes, I have it nicely secured. Okay, and we have the
God
cane lightsaber.
I love that.
The red
so
and gold
much.
hilt.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, it doesn't light up very well, but Yes, that's it.
That's amazing. I love
So yes, I
that.
had fun making that.
That's
So
awesome.
yes, I'm actually going in a couple weeks to GalaxyCon here in Raleigh, and then I've got another one.
Oh,
And
that's really cool.
I got a wonderful piece of advice from another Santa because it's like, how do I do this? How do I make it work? And is it okay to do it? Because you're professional Santa, and I'm part of professional Santa groups, and it's like you don't want to upset people or whatever. It's like, am I doing this right? Okay. And they said, what you should do, don't be Mike being dressed as a Santa mashup character. Be Santa doing cosplay.
Oh, I love that advice.
And that made all the difference.
Yes.
So then I'm still Santa, and that's what I do in the off season is I go and play dress up.
Santa has to have something in the off season.
I have my giveaways that I give out, and the business cards to the parents, of course, which is the whole point. So then it's a tax write-off. And yeah, it's magical, and the kids love it. I get so many pictures from children.
Oh yeah,
and they just love it.
Oh, that's really cool. That's really cool. Like Mark said, I had a conversation with my kid a few years ago, and he said, I kind of do believe and I kind of don't. Like, I know, but I still like it. So we still do milk and cookies and everything. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Look, my deal with the 16-year-old is you either say you believe or you don't get presents. So
yeah, that was my mom forever. We're teenagers, and you believe or you ain't getting presents. Like,
yes.
Oh, yeah, we believe. We believe.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Did someone say milk and cookies? Yes, Dr. D. Yep. We got milk and cookies, 100%.
Yep, that's right.
Well, that's really cool. I don't think that I would have thought to do like a cosplay Santa as doing cosplay as Santa at Comic-Con. That's really neat. That's really cool.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So it's fun. There's another Santa. He just goes as Santa, but then he's got several different Santa outfits, and he stays in the kids zone area. Yeah. But we'll hang out and talk and stuff.
Oh, that's awesome.
And, yeah.
Do you have any questions as like, oh, there's two of you here. How does that work?
Oh, well, because the Santa is so busy, he can't be everywhere at once. And so he has an army of helpers that come help him. But you never know who the real Santa is.
That's right.
And we're not allowed to say.
I like it.
It could be me.
That's perfect.
You don't know. See, that's what you do. Yeah.
That's perfect. Do you have a serial killer or true crime story that fascinates you?
I love that question. That was such a unique question. I listen to Real Crime Profile podcast, and it's hosted by Jim Clemente. He's one of the producers of Criminal Minds, and he also is a sexual abuse survivor. And so, but he's also FBI something or other, and he used that knowledge to help produce Criminal Minds TV show. I mean, for like every season. And a lot of these stories, it's him and two others. One British lady from used to work for Scotland Yard, and
looks like Laura Richards.
Yeah, exactly. And then another
Lisa Zambetti
from Criminal Minds as well. Great podcast. And they do so many stories. I followed the Jeffrey Epstein case. So many teenage girls were abused. And all of those cases, the one that struck me was the Leaving Neverland documentary on Michael Jackson and his victims. And that's still in the news because now they're able to file a lawsuit against the company that still owns the music rights to Michael Jackson. I guess it's like family owned. And now they're able to bring it into court for civil. And so many other cases, and the courts just treat things so unfairly that victims are shamed and blamed, and it's just horrifying. So much miscarrying of justice happens in so many of these cases. It's just really sad. But to hear all those updates, and Jim is just fascinating in it because he knows the law, he knows the system up and down, and he can call out, okay, this is where they messed up. And this is what should happen and how things should happen. And they're definitely advocating for victims of abuse and all of that. So they're just fascinating stories for sure.
Well, that's really cool. That's one Real Crime Profile. I had not heard of that one before, so I'll have to check that one out because I listen to podcasts while I cook dinner. It's funny because I listen to them on speaker, and my kids are home and everything. Well, I mean, they're not home right now, but most of the time they're home, and I'll listen to it on speaker, and my 9-year-old will come in and be like, "What are you listening to?"
Right. Yeah. Yes. And I like podcasts, but like SVU and probably even Criminal Minds.
Oh, I love Criminal
TV
Minds.
show because I kind of lived it. It's a little too close to home.
Yeah, that's understandable.
So, yeah, it's like no, I'm good. It's just a little too triggering.
Yeah,
a little too close to home. So
that's understandable.
Yeah, my wife likes a lot of those things, and it's like, okay, you can watch them. I'm going in the other room.
Yeah, you have your thing. So, I've got my thing. Yeah, it's all good.
Yeah, that's fine.
Healthy. Fine. That's healthy. That's just fine.
Yeah.
Dr. D says the screen is taken up by a 7 days to die window, asking me to approve access to my Twitch ID. Can't figure out how to do that.
Error message.
Let me open up my Twitch and see if that's happening on my side as well. Because there shouldn't be anything, I don't think. Let's see. We're gonna sidetrack for just a second.
Okay.
Please grant access. Oh, I see what you're talking about. How do you get rid of that? Oh yeah, there is. There's a little like little carrot, sideways carrot. It's hard to see, but click on it and that'll collapse it. Good job, Bite. Yeah, over to the right-hand side, about like an inch down on my screen, there's a little carrot to close the window. You should be able to close it that way. If that doesn't work, let Bite know, and I will put her in charge of helping you figure it out. So, Mike, I appreciate you joining us today and being willing to share your story. There are a lot of people who have been through situations of abuse or assault, and rightfully so, they don't want to share it, or they don't feel the need to share it. And just from you reaching out to me, I know that you're a survivor of childhood sexual abuse and sexual trafficking, and also as a young adult, sexual assault by a member of the clergy. So is there anything that you want to share regarding those experiences in whatever you're comfortable sharing?
Right. Yes. Yeah, trigger warning. I'm going to describe stuff not too graphic, but still, this can be triggering for those who have experienced abuse. But I want to be open and honest about that. My journey kind of started, the abuse that I had as a child, I blocked out. So I didn't know anything had happened. At age 20, Methodist minister took interest in me, and found a convenient excuse to come visit me in my apartment where I live by myself. And yeah, I was 20 at the time, and he started with the back rub, and then it went to him touching where he shouldn't be touching. And something inside of me said, no, this is not going to happen. And it was like shouting, no. And I got him to leave as soon as possible. And I'm going, okay, where did that come from? No idea. But that so messed with my head, because it was not only the physical touching, but then the spiritual. Okay, this man of God doing this to me. And then did I put up like gay vibes or what? I mean, all this confusion going through my head. And yeah, eventually told a friend, told leaders. We eventually confronted him, and he denied it. A year later, I confronted him again through his leadership, and then he admitted to just about everything except the actual touching. He got like really, really close, but wouldn't admit to that one little thing. But they believed the story, but he was near retirement age. They kept it in house. He got a wrist slap, but because he was retiring soon. But sure enough, I looked later, and eventually they put him back on part-time status. So, yeah, just like so many other cases, so many institutional abuses out there, whether it's Boy Scouts, Catholic Church, the sports leaders, all of these things happening, and they get placed from position to position, from city to city, from state to state, moved around, and they just keep reoffending, and it's so frustrating.
Yeah.
And I saw that, he had gone through several states before he got to my state. And so obviously stuff was going on. And then it's just kind of swept under the rug. And that's why all these lawsuits are coming out. But fast forward, I got married, and then soon after my daughter was born, she was about 7 months old, something kind of clicked, and I had all of these confused ideas and so forth going on, and I ended up going to a support group for that, and read a book, and it shared a story of someone who had similar issues, discovering she had been sexually abused, I think, by her father, and it was forced oral was how she was abused, and how she described it. Something clicked in my head, and I call it like a truth wave, where it just came down, and it was like something in the back of my head. That's what happened to you.
Wow.
And I was just devastated. I called the leader of the 12-step group in tears. He talked me through it and got me together, and continued to process that over the next several years, getting more facts, narrowing it down. It was my father who was my abuser. He has similarly abused several other family members, extended family members, when they were all younger.
Wow.
By that same method. So I had confirmation that it was him. Though you got a light show going on.
They'll stop in just a minute. Hi, Joyce.
It's like Christmas lights.
Yes.
Hey. So yes, and I'm ADD too, so it's like, oh, we have lights. Okay, no idea what I was talking about. So yes. Then that was, I was age 30. I'm 59 now. So continue to get help, support groups, and so forth. Couldn't afford a therapist, didn't have strong insurance, and raising kids. So money was tight. So I got whatever free help I could until 2019. Kids were out of the house, and I really started looking at things, and I hit that, like I mentioned before, the Leaving Neverland documentary. It's 4-hour special. It's still on HBO on Max. It's still there. And then if you look in the special features, is the Oprah special. It was a 1-hour Oprah special after. And they mentioned Male Survivor. Forum.malesurvivor.org is the website. And they have this forum for male abuse survivors, childhood or adult. It's been there for almost 20 years now. So that thousands of men have gone on, shared their stories, all their issues, and it's just a treasure trove of information and support. They have live chat. They have weekly text-based meetings, and it was so helpful. I was able to just pour my guts out and share there exactly what I was going through, and find I wasn't alone. And hey, you probably have PTSD. Really? What's that? Okay. And then I look it up, and it's like, okay, me. It described my whole personality, which was very scary, because, okay, if I get healed from that, what's left? That was scary.
Yeah.
And I've gotten a lot of healing, and now, this new Mike has just been blossoming and coming through the process. And I'm like randomly talking to strangers, like in the grocery store or whatever. It's like, I would never do that before. It's like, who are you? Why are you doing that? And so all these things are just surprising me, coming out of my personality that were just repressed before, because of all the layers of trauma. And looking at all those things, and addicted to porn as well. And I finally got help with a therapist for that. I think the year before, it's like 2017, 2018. And I've been free from porn almost 5 years now. And also got tied in with husbandmaterial.com. And it's a group, faith-based group for men, helping them find freedom from pornography. And so much is sexual brokenness. Some of these groups, it's like, okay, we're men. We need to like work hard. And as long as we work hard, we can stop our porn addiction. Rah, rah. And they take a different approach where, okay, it comes from wounds. Porn is not the disease, it's a symptom. Just like any addiction. And you need to look at what it's there to numb pain. So what's the pain? And so much of that usually comes from childhood, from traumas. So it's all this brokenness is where they approach it. And there's a quote, Tony Robbins said this, and the husband material leader, Drew Boa, he quotes this often, and I love it. Heal the boy and the man will appear.
I like it.
And that's so true, because so much of our acting out comes from woundedness. And you heal that woundedness, and that true self emerges. And that is so true. So that's why I ended up going to Husband Material, going through a lot of their resources, and they got me into coaching as well. So I'm recovery life coach for them, as well as for my own agency, which is Polar Life Consulting that I've started. I've been doing this about a year and a half, though I've been working with men on and off for like 25 years in different support groups and so forth. So I've got a lot of experience helping men. And let's see. And then while I was on Male Survivor, talking about all my experiences, and that I had a huge gap in memory, and we kind of picked that apart. And one event where it was a very weird camping event, I went with my father, and we broke that down, and someone on Male Survivor said, I think that was a boy swap event. What's that?
Wow.
And it's a sexual exploitation event where, people bring boys and that they get sedated and then they're kind of swapped. And it also happened during the gas crisis. So I was like 4 hours away. It was the early 70s, and huge gas lines. I mean, worse than anything we've seen. Like 2-3 hours waiting in line to get gas. And whatever the plan was, however I was sedated, it wore off. And that happened to a few other boys as well. There was 3 of us. And because of that, we were awake and alert and no longer easy prey. And we saw faces, we saw where we were. There was this awake knowledge. And it's like, okay, no, we're going to do some stuff with all the other dads. And there was no other kids. Why were there all these dads there? And there's only a couple of us. And it didn't make sense. So you guys play by the lake, and you stay there, and then we'll bring food to you, but you don't go anywhere near, don't come near the buildings. You have to stay here or further back. And that's what it was. And it was all last minute, not like, hey, we're going camping in a month. So something to look forward to is last minute. So on all those weird facts, that guy from Male Survivor, it was this. Devastating. Yeah, that's what it was. And now I have a PTSD therapist help me through all of that trauma, processing that. And that's just been horrifying, but so healing, digging deep into those wounds and realizing I'm not alone, and that I can find healing. And now I'm at the point where I can share my truth with others and help other men heal also. And that's been a huge joy to be able to help others.
Absolutely. I know that a lot of survivors face feelings of shame and self-blame. Is that something that you experienced? And if
Yes.
so, how did you work through those emotions and kind of shift your narrative internally?
Yes, very much. One thing I love from Male Survivor, and I've adopted, that it was not your fault.
Amen.
And I lead support groups, and at the end, any group I lead, I go right into camera. It was not your fault.
Yeah.
Very clearly. So they know, and I say it a couple of times, because especially for men, for boys, because if we get touched in certain places, we have a physiological response to that. And the abusers know that, and they will use that against us.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, see, you're enjoying this. You're asking for it. Or, oh, hi, I'm showing you naked pictures. And hey, see, you got that thing there that popped up. Yeah, we're going to have to, I've got to fix that now. And they will use our own bodies against us and convince us that we're culpable. There's not the stranger in the van. That's such a small percentage of abuse. Stranger in the van, abduction, that kind of thing. It's grooming. It's grooming not only you, but the parents, caregivers, to convince them that I am safe and that I can do things with you. And then part of the grooming process is convince the person this is not abuse, this is something else.
Right.
And the Michael Jackson documentary, he said, no, this is how I show love. It's like we're married. This is a love relationship. This is how we show love. And that's all part of the grooming process, to convince the victim that it's not even abuse. So they don't even know that label, just something icky happened. And they ask abusers who didn't really have a gender preference, but still chose to abuse boys, and they asked why. They said, boys don't tell. The CDC, Centers for Disease Control, have stats, and for females in the US, 1 in 4 females will be sexually abused or assaulted by the age of 18. For males, it's 1 in 6 abused or assaulted by the age of 18. Third world countries, those stats are even higher. And most believe, because boys don't tell, that's still underreported. So the stats are probably even more than that.
Yeah.
And so much happens in families, like I was trafficked by my father. So much intrafamilial trafficking happens. And yeah, it's a camping trip. So many things are hidden and go under the radar. And I'm sedated. I don't know what's happening. But yeah, I look at the report card, I look at my picture at that age, and you could see it in my eyes if you knew what to look for. And I think I saw a report card from that era that I was kind of spacey and so forth. And there's clues, but it's subtle clues. And if you ask me at that time, was I abused? No. If you ask me at age 20 or age 25, was I being trafficked? No. Now, yeah, I was trafficked.
Yeah. You didn't have the words for it. You didn't have the understanding.
Right. Or even the knowledge. And now there's a book, The Body Keeps the Score. I haven't read it. I know a lot about it. And it's so much my truth, because I was sedated, but I have so many body memories. Some were bringing up in therapy. Some have been there. But certain likes, dislikes, foods that I have aversion to. Usually it's some kind of tactile sensation that I don't like. So many things that just add to the puzzle pieces. Then when I find the truth, all those other things made sense.
Right. That's something that I think a lot of people don't necessarily connect, is that some of those preferences that come up later in life could be absolutely related. And I also have not read The Body Keeps the Score, but I've heard great things, and it is on my want to read list. My ever growing, never going down
Yes. I understand. Yes, mine. I keep getting more and more titles. You got to read this. You got to read this.
Yes.
Okay.
It seems like every week I add probably 5 or 10 books. But absolutely, I mean, your body, your brain, your mind is always going to connect those things subconsciously without you even realizing it. Absolutely.
Right.
And that's a hard thing for some people to kind of understand.
Right.
So, Tib, I see your question. Why did or do we allow NAMBLA to exist? So, it's the North American Man-Boy Love Association.
NAMBLA, yes.
Yes, NAMBLA. Mm-hmm.
Yes. And I think they've changed the name, so it's not even NAMBLA anymore. But yeah, they're the man-boy love groups are still trying to advocate, even internationally. I think they're trying to do something with like the UN and so forth. I've heard grapevine that's happening. And yeah, they make it, they're very sneaky, but yeah, they were the ones who organized all this stuff. This is pre-internet. I was trafficked in the 70s. So it was porn magazines, ads in the back of porn magazines, and that get-togethers and so forth. So this networking existed. But yeah, they know they have super high-paid lawyers. It also feeds the porn industry, which is often involves the mob because they make money off of it and they can bribe officials so that this stuff can continue.
Yeah.
So it's a very sad, sick world that continues to support it. And I also hate the word child pornography. It's now childhood sexual abuse materials is now the proper term, because child pornography implies consent of the child. Yeah. I'm visualizing like a 5-year-old smoking a cigarette. Okay, yeah, let's do this next tape, and are you ready to go? Okay, let's go. Let's roll them. That's what that concept means, but that's not the truth. Right. It's child sexual abuse materials. It's materials made while other adults were abusing children.
Yeah.
And there's so much of it out there. And knowing that I was trafficked, I actually ended up doing a search because, I remember bright lights. I'm sensitive to bright lights. And I contacted the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children and gave them photos of what I looked like at that age. And I got some clear moles on my neck and so forth. And they did a search. They found nothing. Doesn't mean there's nothing out there, but they kept it on file. So if anything does eventually pop up, they would flag it and then let me know. But so much non-digital stuff was out there, and now digital stuff, that's so much more easily shared. The non-digital stuff, it was like passed around.
Right.
So if it was never digitized, then it would have to be like taken in a raid or whatever of someone's house who had their little stash. So it has not been found, but it does not mean it does not exist. So
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my answer to that, Tib, is I don't fucking know, and I wish that they didn't. But I don't know why. I don't know why it's still allowed to be a thing. There are a lot of things in the world that I don't know why they're still allowed to be a thing. And if I were ruler of the world, it would not be that way.
Yeah, I researched it just for my own knowledge, and there was one quote of theirs: "Sex before 8, or it's too late."
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and it gets darker. So
I literally have tears in my eyes right now because of that.
Yeah.
I can't. That's no.
That's how wounded and broken that is. Yeah.
My youngest is 9, and that's too. I can't even fathom. I can't even fathom that. That's horrible.
Yeah.
Sorry.
They convince themselves that it's for the person's own good.
Nope.
And and
fuck those
why,
people. Absolutely not.
That's why this stuff continues. Because they convince themselves that it's healthy, it's right, it's good.
Yeah, that's insane. Absolutely atrocious, horrible.
Yeah.
So how did you find the strength to even begin the process of healing? Once you realized kind of what you had been through, or it sounds like it started with healing from the abuse as an adult. So once you realized what you had been through, or once you decided to start that healing process, how did you go about that?
Well, I found some support groups for those dealing with sexual brokenness issues. That was helpful. And then, Dan Allender wrote a book, The Wounded Heart, a Christian author, therapist. And this was like 20 years ago where he wrote that. He's now updated it with a second version and a follow-up book and workbook, but I went through it. This was in my mid-30s, so after discovering it, and that was so helpful. And then I ended up leading groups through that book as well afterwards.
That's awesome.
But book and workbook, talking so much about all the things, all the symptoms that come with it that you don't even realize. And Male Survivor has supported that as well. Things like hypervigilance, where back of your head, you're, okay, am I safe? Big crowds, oh no. Okay, where's the exit? And you're just, and PTSD, I noticed that was part of your profile as well, that for children, if you have, and adults too, if you have ongoing trauma, not just a single incident or a few incidents, but it's ongoing, so your cortisol level, all those brain chemicals and so forth, that are the fight, flight, freeze, fawn. I think there's 6 Fs, the last count.
I know, they keep adding more. I can't keep up with them.
And those cortisol levels continue as if you are continuing in that state of fight or flight, and it doesn't stop. So even when the trauma isn't there, those chemicals are still there. So your cortisol level is high. That continues. So you're always thinking that you're not safe, even though there's no danger. And they'll see that in ongoing trauma in children, that those cortisol levels are really high. And that just kills your body, having those chemicals constantly being pumped through. And like they have the ACEs, the Adverse Child Experiences test. Are you familiar with ACEs?
I have heard of it, yes.
Yes. It was a group out of San Diego, Kaiser Permanente, surveying all their members in San Diego suburbs. So there's all kind of middle-class people saying, it's just 10 questions, yes or no, have you had this experience in childhood? And if you have, and then they showed all the other health and social and physical and mental things over so many years that these people had or didn't have, and correlated to what number they got. And 2 or above, 3 or above, 4 or above, they stopped at 5 or above. All the charts, 5 or above, it's huge. You have liver problems, addiction problems, early pregnancy or fathering a child, suicide attempts, all these different things, huge numbers because of these adverse childhood experiences, including abuse. Several other things on there as well. But you can see how these affect the person. And learning that, and then realizing, okay, I need help and need to find healing from that, and then finding the different resources. PTSD, trauma-informed therapist is key. There's so many therapists that don't want to touch this stuff. They don't want to touch childhood trauma. And you go to them, it's like, oh, okay, well, let's talk about it, whatever. find someone who is trained in childhood trauma.
Yeah.
Preferably works with PTSD. I know EMDR is the popular treatment, eye movement
It's
desensitization.
rapid
Yeah,
desensitization.
and I don't know. EMDR. That's the de facto standard. There's several other treatments as well. But if they at least had that, they had a good chunk of training. So that will get you in the door. And it's hard to find them. So if you have insurance, seek that out. If not, go to support groups, whatever group you can find. I like faith-based groups, but there's all kinds of groups out there as well. And Male Survivor was a great resource and great encouragement. And they'll encourage you with all these other support groups as well that are out there. But get help, and help is there, and you are not alone, and it was not your fault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really important. And also, if you don't have insurance, there are therapist finders that you can go through that they'll do low cost. They'll do it on a sliding scale. They'll do all kinds of different ways to find a therapist and to, find something that will work with your budget, find something that will work with your insurance, find someone that will work with your specific things that you are facing, your challenges. There's all kinds of different ways to adjust that. And if you're having a hard time, I highly suggest, this is not sponsored, but I highly suggest RAD, and that is Rise Above the Disorder. They have a great program where they will have someone work with you individually. It's how I found a therapist for my 16-year-old. And his therapist is wonderful, absolutely phenomenal. And in Texas, for the specific things that my 16-year-old is facing, it is hard to find a therapist for those. So I highly suggest it based on my personal experience. So if you're interested, yes, sliding scale on, I think it's, is it Psychology Today that has the sliding scale that you can use? Also, all kinds of resources, all kinds, free therapy, local nonprofits. There are options out there. Like, please don't feel like if you don't have insurance, you can't get therapy, because I'm here to tell you that there is a way. You just have to find it.
Right. Another resource I made use of is Men Healing, which they used to be part of a Male Survivor. They broke off into their own thing because they kind of expanded, and they do in-person retreats for men. They got a few each year across the country for male survivors, and you get together for a weekend. Basically, you go to camp, and all the counselors are licensed therapists. So, and they do layers upon layers of safety. So the interview process, it's like safety, 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 safety. And roommates, okay, strict rules, safety, 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 to make sure, because knowing this group of people, okay, we have hypervigilance, where, our cortisol levels are crazy. There's like tons of trust issues. So safety, 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 because that's what most of us need. And you go there, and you're still not really safe, but then like they'll do icebreaker activities and so forth to get to the point where you feel safe, and then safe enough where you can actually share your stories and find healing. And it wasn't the first event where I worked with other male survivors, but it was the first event where I was with somebody else who had been trafficked. And that was so freeing to share that truth and to know that I wasn't crazy, because at the time it was really new for me, and to have someone just confirm, yes, these things happen. Yes, that happened to me. I had something similar happen, and just such freedom, such a relief to know that I was not alone.
Absolutely.
And I'm not crazy. And part of Male Survivor, I coined the term CSA normal for childhood sexual abuse. It's all these things that are very much, not necessarily everyone, but a lot of us have in common, of dislikes, distastes, smells, or triggers, crowds, you like to be in the back of a crowd. Big crowds, not good. Smaller crowds, okay. All these other symptoms that are actually very normal for survivors to face, and very helpful to normalize it. So I'm not weird. I'm not crazy. Oh, and all that. You have that too? I had no idea some of these things were related. Really? Okay. Yeah. So helpful to know that I wasn't alone.
Yeah. That is something that if you can find, these online support groups and with people who've been through the same thing. I did something similar when I was going through my divorce. I found a couple of support groups for women who had been abused, and it was very helpful. It was very helpful to just be able to speak your truth without judgment also. And of course, there's, even in a group like that, of course, there's going to be somebody who's a little judgy. Okay, fine, whatever.
Trauma.
But they've been there.
You're going to have trauma.
Right. They've been there. They've been through similar situations, and you can use the language that you use. You don't have to monitor yourself as much, know?
Exactly. There's a huge freedom. When I tell my story in mixed groups, I have to be very careful. I've shared it. And like with Celebrate Recovery, a faith-based 12-step group, I've shared my story there, but then they help me go through it. And it's like, okay, because I show pictures of myself at different ages, including as an infant. No, don't show that picture. Because, 2/3 of our audience are women. You show them a picture, you can talk about it. You show them the picture, we're going to lose them. You're going to devastate them. So it's, oh, really? So learning how impactful my story was. And how to present it in a way in mixed crowds so that it's still hearable and understandable without overwhelming. So it's like, okay, all right. So yeah, I have tweaked it accordingly, but then there's such freedom with survivor only groups because you can go and talk about the specifics, the horrific specifics, and not be judged and be welcome, and it's okay, and we get it. We understand it, and there's so much freedom in that. And they say healing from whatever you're trying to recover from, it happens in community. Healing happens in community. And that's so true. So find your community, whatever you're dealing with, find your community, and that's going to let you heal because you'll be able to share with people who get it.
Absolutely. It's one thing to share with support groups, healing groups, those kinds of things. What motivated you to share your story more publicly on things like podcasts? And what message do you hope to get out to others who might be struggling in silence?
Yes. Well, I attended that Men Healing event, and then someone in my group was then asked, because they were planning to do just a one-day event near where he lived, and they wanted more people for their panel, and they kind of got him to do it, and he did it, and he said it was the best experience he ever had sharing his story publicly, and that kind of gave me the courage to say, yeah, maybe I need to share my story. So I started finding venues to do that. And I found a new podcast that for survivors, and it was a male and female survivor. It's called No Longer Ashamed podcast. They're based out of Seattle, and great podcast, but they just talked about their own experiences, but they said, hey, if you want to share your story, let us know. And listen to it. It's like, oh, yeah, that'd be nice. And they seemed like really nice people. And so I asked them, they said, sure. So I was their first interview. I was episode 10 on their podcast. And I was their very first interview. They've had tons now. I think they're on episode 50, and they've interviewed several different men and women. And I've been on several panel discussions with them as well. And I've done an update. But it was my first one. I was horribly nervous. I had everything written out. And then, trying to share that was so helpful. Also, Male Survivor teamed with another group and trained us to workshop our stories. There was, I think, 12 of us that for like a month and a half, we workshopped our stories for then a live event at the end. And links to all this is on my link tree, which is in the show notes. They interviewed us, workshopped all of our stories. So we were in little small groups and then sharing it with each other. And then we swap around, trying to hone it in. And then the coaches would try, okay, I want more of your personal stuff. So then I added the whole Santa thing to my story, which I didn't have before. So it's like, yes, we want that because it's like the positive. It's not just all these horrible things, but you're thriving afterwards. And so tweaking that, and that helped give me more courage to share more and more. So I did that. And then any kind of podcast that wanted to have me, I would do it. And the more I shared, the freer it was. And I did a live show as well, where a bunch of questions. And I love that because then it's like I'm not just reading. Some of the events like Celebrate Recovery, if you're reading a script, it's in a pre-approved script and you follow your script. And that was good. But having the interaction like this interview is so good and enjoyable. I do enjoy this. And you get me talking, I'll talk forever. But it's so freeing and so healing, and it helps to heal the shame because you're putting it out there. This is my truth. This is what happened to me. It was not my fault. And when I hear stories like when I was going through this in 2019, Terry Crews came out. He's from Brooklyn Nine-Nine and America's Got Talent. He came out of being groped as an adult recently at some award show or something like that, and calling that person out. Anthony Edwards from ER and Top Gun, he came out about abuse that happened. So many other male celebrities were coming out with their stories around the Me Too movement, sharing this happened to me too. So it's not just women, but they were boldly saying, okay, and this is me. And Oprah did something before her show ended where she got a hold of Male Survivor and had her entire audience filled with male survivors and interviewing a bunch of them. And they all had pictures of themselves at the age of abuse. And they could show that. So that was a whole episode. You can still, I still can find it online. But that's out there, showing that, yes, it was not your fault. And Tyler Perry was on that show as well. And he's been very vocal about his own experiences with abuse. But the more men that tell their stories, the more freedom it gives other men to share their truth. And it empowered me to share my truth. And that's one thing that I love to do. I love to do with coaching is encourage other male survivors to share their story, share the truth. If it's whatever place it needs to be, if it's a very safe place, just within my little group or within husband material or within Male Survivor or wherever, share it in a safe place, but then expand so that other people can hear that truth, because men need to hear it. There's lots of resources out there for women, not a lot of vocal stories for men. And it's growing. It's getting better. There's several organizations, 1in6.org, and there's several others focusing on men and male survivors. But the more we share, the more freedom it gives other men to be able to share and know that they're not alone.
Yeah. I think it's just really powerful to be able to share, and that some people are willing to share. You know, it's something that not everyone has the strength or the desire, understandably, to rehash anything and to share that and to use that for something good. So I want to just thank you again for being willing to do that. I think that it's a really powerful thing that you do by going on shows like this and sharing just parts of your story.
Yeah. So thankful that you and other hosts are willing to allow people like me to come in and share. And so people who happen to come across your show and are survivors and realize, oh, I'm not alone. And no, it was not my fault.
Exactly. Yeah.
And there is help out there. And I can get healed. And that's an important message.
Yeah.
That you can find healing. Resources are out there and available. So you don't have to go out there alone and continue to suffer. That there is help out there and people who have been there and understand.
Yeah. I know that now you're married and you have kids and you're Santa, for Pete's sake. So how did you learn to trust again and form healthy connections with those around you, given what you've been through?
Well, yeah, I know faith is very important to me. I've been involved with church and the men's groups in church. Safe place to develop healthy male relationships, healthy friendships. But it was hard, and then learning to trust and finding places where I can share my story. Until 2019, when I started uncovering all kinds of stuff. But it was church friends who encouraged me to go to Celebrate Recovery in the area. And so I went with them, and they were a huge support and encouragement to me while I started to process a lot of this stuff. But learning to trust. And that was one of the things. I did not trust men at all. And I didn't know why until, 30, when I uncovered, oh, well, that makes sense. Okay. Why those feelings were there, where, why do I not trust men? Why do I not want to have male relationships? And it's like this fear of other men. And trying to overcome that with friendships and so forth, and finding male friends who can be supportive, and learning to trust. And it's hard. And just like therapists, it doesn't always work the first time. Sometimes you got to keep trying, but don't give up. And some friendships don't work out. Or people, it's a very transient society, so people move a lot. And I've had I call it serial monogamous best friend. So I'll have one best friend, and then something will happen, they'll move away, and then I'll get one more best friend. Then they'll move away after a couple years, and then the next one. So I've got, it's like I only have so much space for that. But finding that person that can be there for you is very, very helpful.
Absolutely. Is there anything you do now in terms of self-care, other purposeful exercises or activities to continue your healing process?
Well, yes. One thing that husband material encourages is something called triads. It's like accountability partner, only group of 3 or more. So
that's cool.
If someone is busy, you're not stuck. There's a backup. Because we all have very busy lives, and some are larger. And I actually have 2 different groups. So I've got a group of 2 different groups of 3 that I'm a part of, and we meet weekly over Zoom, and then can call or text each other during the week. It's like, I'm having a hard time. Can someone call? And we can call each other and support each other and talk either on the phone or on Zoom. And then text each other, I'm having a really hard time, pray for me, or whatever. And that's just been so helpful to have someone that I can call on. And they're struggling too. They're part of that group. Some survivors, some just dealing with other sexual brokenness as well. But you rely on each other. And I've been in these groups for over a year. And we become friends, and when we can meet in person, which is rare because we're kind of spread out, it's phenomenal. So, and very special. So doing that, and then learning how to do self-care, because it's something you kind of have to learn when you're broken, and especially dealing with codependency, you're worried about taking care of others and not so much yourself. And learning it's okay to take care of me. And that's important. Yeah. And taking a break and taking time. I know I know your fur baby is there. We actually lost we had to put one down this past week.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
So, but then giving myself time to grieve that, and taking time off work. I have leave. I can use the leave. I needed to take time off so I could grieve. I canceled my schedule. I had a therapy appointment. I'm canceling my therapy appointment because I need to deal with this, and it's okay. It's okay. Something Celebrate Recovery says, it's okay to not be okay.
Absolutely.
You have permission to not have it all together, and it's okay. And giving yourself permission. I'm not okay, but it's okay. Yeah. And you can have bad days. Giving yourself permission to cry. Healing tears is what I call it. And you need to release all that bad stuff and get it out. You can't just hold it all in. So you need to find healthy ways of getting all the negativity out so you can heal. And that's all part of self-care.
Yeah. I had a conversation with someone just the other day in our community about self-care and about the fact that it's not just like, I don't say self-care and I don't mean bubble baths. That's not what I mean.
Those.
And look, if you're at the level where you can take a self-care bubble bath, that's fantastic. I'm happy for you. That's great. I'm not saying that is something that is not considered self-care. It absolutely is. If coloring is your thing today for self-care, that's great. But I'm talking like, sometimes you just have to take a shower. Like if you haven't been able to get up the nerve to take a shower for some number of days, and you have to convince yourself that that's part of your self-care routine. Like that's
brushing
okay
your
too.
Teeth.
Yes, absolutely.
Putting on deodorant, whatever. Yeah.
Yep.
I get that because I work from home and my wife's retired full time. So I don't go out a lot. I do a lot on Zoom. But I work, I've got my other office here, and I don't get around other people much. Yeah. So it's like, it's so much easier. Just, put some stuff off. And I know I need to do laundry. So all that. It's like, I'm just doing some self-care and taking care of things. And you kind of have to remind yourself to do that. And I know so many of us deal with depression and so forth, and that's part of it. And realizing, yes, I am important enough to take care of myself.
Absolutely.
Yep. I have value. And I have enough value where, I need to take care of myself because I'm worth it. And that's okay. And they say, I love the airplane analogy. When there's turbulence and the mask comes down, put your own mask on first before you help someone else. And that's so true. We need to take care of ourselves before we take care of anyone else. Or, we could drop dead. They say, pouring out of an empty vessel. So you need to, it's like a big pitcher, but you're empty and you're trying to pour out to other people, but there's nothing in there. You need to continually fill it up so then you can share it with others. Yeah. And if you're not doing the filling, there's not much to give.
Absolutely. So you hit two of my three favorite self-care analogies there. The other one is treating yourself like you're a creature and you have to treat your environment as your enclosure.
I like that.
The creature has not had any vegetables in a while. You gotta fix the creature a salad. The creature is a little irritated because her enclosure is messy. Let's straighten something up so the creature can feel better.
I love that. That's so great.
So you hit 2 out of 3, and I'll just throw in the third for free there.
Well, I hadn't heard that one before. So I'm going to tuck that away, and I think I'll use that. Yeah.
I like that one because I have
the creature.
I have snakes, I have a turtle, I have a cat, I have dogs. Each of them has unique needs, and it's like, the cat's litter box needs to be cleaned out. That's why he's meowing at me right now, which clearly he's not. But, maybe I just need to go take a shower. Maybe I haven't brushed maybe the creature hasn't brushed her teeth today. Like, this creature has, by the way. But yeah, I love that one. It's great because every creature has a different need. And sometimes it's, you know what, droid, sometimes it is chocolate cake and companionship. Absolutely.
Yep. That's right.
That is a legitimate need.
Yeah. Another joy, we just adopted, actually my daughter adopted a dog 3 years ago. And then her housing situation changed. And can you guys watch the dog for me? And that was 3 years ago. Then a year ago, she loaned us the dog and then gave us the dog. So the dog is now ours. He is a 75-pound boxer mix rescue. Aww. He's now 13, so he's already old. But yeah, he was homeless, and she found him homeless. But so he has trauma, he has bad dreams, but we can really relate, and he keeps me calm when he's in my room. It's been a really nice relationship because we both had trauma.
That's good.
Yeah, we kind of support each other. So it's been very, very healing having him. So he's been very key part of my healing this past year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, now Chad is suggesting things for the enclosure. Sometimes the enclosure lacks sufficient enrichment. My enclosure just needs a faster GPU and less demanding spawn. Listen, Dr. D, I feel that one hard.
Yes. Yes. One thing I did, total self-care. We moved into this duplex that we're at, and we had separate bathrooms. And I had my own bathroom. I'm going to decorate how I want. And so, total Star Wars motif. Where shower curtain, poster, there's even sticker on the back of the toilet seat lid. It's aim like a Jedi, not like a stormtrooper. That's right there. I saw that. It's like I had to get that. So yes, spent like $100 on Amazon and all this stuff. Darth Vader area rug, Star Wars curtains, tons of stuff, and because I go there every day, and it's like, this is nice, and it just gives me this little bit of joy whenever I go in there. Total self-care. Didn't have to do that, and it's like, I did that for me.
Yep,
I said, absolutely. Why are you doing that? It's like, I'm in there every day. I want to decorate it for me.
Yes.
So
yes.
Yeah, and it was a lot. It's like, can I do this? It's like, yes, I'm worth it. I'm worth doing that. So yes, I did that, and I was so thrilled. That I did that. Yeah. So do what you need to do for self-care for sure.
Absolutely. I know, and you brought this up at the beginning, but I know a lot of survivors face challenges in seeking justice and holding their perpetrators accountable. So how can, in your opinion, society better support survivors in their pursuit of justice and dismantling the systems that enable sexual violence in the first place?
Right. Loaded question. I wish I had a magic wand. I know there are legal programs, I think out of New York, where if it is a minor victim, that you set up a separate interview room. They do not confront the perpetrator. That would be re-traumatizing for the child. And so many lines of questioning are just so re-traumatizing. Oftentimes from both sides.
Yeah.
So you have like a social worker, trained social worker in a private room with closed circuit cameras, and they can ask questions, but it's all filtered through this one person who can ask the questions in a way that a child would understand.
Yeah.
So they can get the truth back and forth, and questions can be asked without re-traumatizing the child. So programs
that's
like
so
that,
important.
Yes. And the victim blaming, victim shaming, so much of that. And the concept that women can be abusers and men can be victims. That I've heard so many stories of being forced to penetrate, where for whatever reason they get groomed, they get forced. Okay, your mom's in the other room. I'm going to kill her unless you do this, or whatever, to convince the person, the male victim, to perform.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, wait, no, you're doing that. Okay, that's you're a male, so that way you are the perpetrator. It's like, no, they forced me to do it.
Right.
That whole mindset. And also the whole idea of, okay, like the Mary Jane Letourneau case, I believe that was a teacher and her teenage student.
Yeah.
Thinking, oh, yeah, hot for teacher or whatever. But so many victims, no, that's inappropriate. And the human brain doesn't really fully mature until about age 25. So anything before that, it's messed up. So a teenager especially, an adult convinces them, grooms them into believing, no, this is love, this is a love relationship. That's abusive. So the concept of consent, children cannot consent.
Yeah.
We don't understand what the children cannot understand what that concept is. And what the idea of consent and what that means. Their brains are not mature enough to handle it. So yeah, all those processes need to be taken into consideration, and the whole sex trafficking industry, porn industry that perpetrates this needs to be stopped. I applaud the websites and so forth that are saying, no, not on my server. Go to another server. And so they're shutting down a lot of this stuff. Thank goodness. Even the social media platforms that people have been using porn, the child sexual abuse materials, all those things. It's like, no, not on my server. And convincing them to get it off. All of that needs to continue. Courts, class action suits continue. A big thing is statute of limitation laws.
Oh, yeah.
The average time between onset of abuse and telling someone that the abuse happened for males, average 25 years.
Oof.
Statute of limitation laws, often 5 years.
Yep.
So 20 years after it's too late, you remember, or you're in a place emotionally to be able to tell or even formulate the concept that what happened was abusive.
Right.
Because the grooming that convinced you that it wasn't. Laws are starting to change, and they're not there yet. But step by step, state by state, they're changing those statute of limitation laws, and that's huge because then it allows people to confront Bill Cosby's victims. The states where statute of limitation laws are coming out, they're able to file at least civil lawsuits against him. Same thing, the Menendez brothers just came out. There's a Peacock documentary. A band member from Menudo came out saying that whole band, Puerto Rican band, Ricky Martin came out of, that was huge in the 80s. #1 hits, but they kept rotating them. Whenever they hit 16, they would age out and bring in more members. It was an undercover sex trafficking ring in the middle of this boy band. And the leader would sexually abuse all the members. And this one guy who came up on the documentary said, yeah, and I was brought into this RCA record producer's home, and under the guise of, yeah, we're advertising the record or whatever. And he abused me as well. What was his name? Melendez. It was the Melendez's father who abused him. And that was the whole point of the reason why the two boys shot the father and the mother, because of abuse. In the first court trial, they talked about the abuse, and it was a hung jury. They retried it with a new judge. The new judge refused to allow any abuse-related testimony to be brought up. So none of that was brought up in the second trial. Because there was no correlation. It's like, yes, there was. And the whole concept of coercive control. Not just domestic violence, but coercive control.
Mm-hmm.
Where you fear for your life. No, they don't have a gun pointed to your head at the moment, but they might tomorrow.
Right.
And gee, do I wait till that gun's pointed at me and then fight back? Or they're sleeping, now I can kill them so I can live.
Right.
That's the story. And this Menudo guy came out. That's now giving enough testimony where they could easily reopen, and they're fighting to reopen now the Melendez case because of this new testimony corroborating, yes, this guy was abusive. And victim blaming. So they're victims, but and they killed the perpetrator. Oh, well, you're going to jail. And if they retry the case and they get downgraded to manslaughter instead of murder, they've already served the maximum sentence for manslaughter, so they would be out if they can get retried. And it's because that Menudo guy shared his story, shared his truth, that is impacting these other people. And yeah, I love the concept, the power of story.
Mm-hmm.
You share your story, you bring freedom to others, as well as freedom to yourself.
Yeah. So, Madsy, I see your message in chat. Madsy says, I was just a part of a very big inquiry into abuse and care, which is those under the care of churches, schools, foster homes, etc. They say never again. Recorded my testimony and then turned it into a legal document. It was very intense, but I'm hopeful that it'll make a difference here in my country. I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, which I might not be, I think Madsy is in Australia. But, you know, it's folks like the two of you who are the most likely to make a difference, because you are willing to share those stories and to go through these steps that bring things to light. So I appreciate, Madsy, what you've done. And I see that you said you had to go, but if you see this later, I appreciate what you went through, even as intense as it was. And Mike, I appreciate you, doing what you're doing as well.
Yes, thank you. Another story out of Australia, the whole Hillsong Church. Mm-hmm. There's documentaries on Netflix and Discovery Plus on them, and they're in the U.S. as well. Horrible abuses from the leader's father, who abused boys, sexually abused boys. It got shoved under the rug, and they said, "Oh yeah, he's no longer in ministry," but still they would have him guest speak at all these other satellite churches still affiliated, and did not report the abuse. And then that leader, the son, who had his own issues, stepped down. But they're still fighting it in the Australian courts because they did not share, but they just took so much money and then pressured and shamed all of these victims. And yeah, just horrifying. And that they paid off through power and influence all the people who normally would have prosecuted. And so much corruption within the church, and organizational abuse. There's so much of it, and thankfully so much of it is coming to light. But yeah, it's everywhere. And I'm so thankful that truth is coming out. And people are being believed, and justice is finally starting to be served. It's a long way to go, though, for sure.
If you could tell someone who is just starting their journey of recovery and healing one thing, what would it be?
Two things, and I said it before. You're not alone. Hope and healing is out there, and the abuse was not your fault.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's something that I hope, if one person can hear that and understand it, I think that our job is our time has been well spent here tonight then.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. If we can get that truth to at least one person, we've done our job.
Absolutely.
For sure. Yeah.
Well, you were talking about a magic wand earlier. I do have a magic wand.
Oh, goodness.
If you could wave this magic wand and eliminate one common opinion, misconception, or theory surrounding mental illness, disabilities, or talking about mental health, what would it be?
Oh, yes. I saw that question. Let me think about that.
It's a big one.
I think for males that, what I said earlier, males can be victims, females can be perpetrators.
Mm-hmm.
And males need to be believed. That so few make up this stuff. Who would make up these stories?
Right.
That if someone comes to you with that truth, especially a family member, believe them.
Mm-hmm.
It's so hard to come forward. Believe them. And be there and support them. For sure. Yeah, I guess I'll leave it there.
Yeah. That's, it's short, but that's such a big thing that if we could just get rid of that misconception, I think lives would be saved if we could get rid of that, for real.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that's we've kind of come to the end here. So if anyone has any more questions for Mike, feel free to put them into the chat and I'll make sure that we ask them. And Mike, I'll just turn it over to you. And if there's anything that we didn't get to or anything you want to throw out there as far as resources or personal recommendations, I'll just open the floor for you for a little bit.
Certainly, yeah. I am a recovery life coach and I work both one-on-one, individual coaching, and in group settings, small group settings. And I will have a website up soon, but I believe my links are in the show notes.
Mm-hmm.
So please be in touch. And free 30-minute consult. We can talk more about your issues and how I can help you reach your life goals and find healing. So get in touch with me, and I'd love to be there for you and be a person that you can share openly with and freely with and find freedom and healing.
And I did go ahead and post your socials one more time. So reach out to Mike, Facebook, email. I've got his link tree on there. His website's coming soon, but I went ahead and put that on there. And then there's a couple of different Santa websites as well. So if you're looking to reach out to Mike, feel free to click on any of those and connect that way. Bite Mark said, I just want to say thank you so much for coming and sharing your story. Speaking out is so important. And I super appreciate everyone that does. And I echo that absolutely here tonight.
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining me today on this episode of Even Tacos Fall Apart. I am immensely grateful to Mike for sharing his story, which is an inspiring testament to the strength of the human spirit. I hope that this episode has encouraged meaningful conversations about the challenges survivors face and the importance of empathy and support. Remember, you are not alone and there is hope and healing out there, no matter what you've been through. If you found this episode valuable, please share it with your friends and family. These conversations can be a lifeline for those who need to hear them the most. And you never know what someone else has been through. If you have your own story to share, or if you want to reach out to me, don't hesitate to connect through social media or email even. I'm here to listen and support you. Check out the website at tacosfallapart.com for links and a whole host of ways that you can find me online to connect with me. Stay tuned for more engaging and insightful episodes on mental health and just human stories. Remember, it's okay not to be okay, and I'm here to remind you that even when life feels like it's falling apart, there's hope and healing ahead. Thank you for being part of the ETFA and FoxFam community, and I look forward to sharing more stories with you. Until next time, take care, be kind, and stay authentic.